This past weekend was a monumental one in the recruiting department for the Louisville football program. On today's episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast, we're going to discuss the significance of this year's edition of the 502 barbecue. So, with that being said, let's get right on into the show.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On the Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. I serve as a credential media member for Cardinal Sports Zone. I also do some PA announcing work for the university in various sports. I want to take this time to personally thank you all again, as I always do, for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder that the Locked On the Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. The 502 barbecue was a monumental recruiting weekend for the Louisville football program. We're going to discuss the significance. The Cardinals program had over 20 players that were rated at least a 4-star or higher, according to at least one recruiting service. We'll talk about some of those highly rated 2025 visitors. And then in the final segment, we'll talk about one of the few 2024 recruits that were on campus, 3-star linebacker Justin Logan, why he is a prospect to watch and how the Cardinals are trying to make up ground in his recruitment. So obviously it seems like the 502 barbecue has become a yearly tradition, despite there being two different coaching staffs that have conducted the event. The first installment of the event was last year, late July, early August, an event that had a good amount of 2023 guys on campus, some Cardinals commits, but had some 5-star players on campus as well. One of them being tight end Deuce Robinson was on campus for that event. You also had multiple 4-star rated guys, but it seems like from a star rating standpoint that Jeff Brohm and company outdid the Cardinals' efforts from last year, which was extremely impressive. Like I mentioned, at least over 20 recruits rated as a 4-star or higher in the 2025 class by one recruiting service or another, mainly 24/7 Sports or the 24/7 Sports Composite, made their way onto campus this past weekend. It's hard to confirm that everyone made it to campus from the initial visitor list that you can find at cardinalsportszone.com or 247sports.com from Cardinal Authority. But from what I've heard, the majority of the highly rated guys made it to campus for the weekend. And Steve Wiltfong of 24/7 Sports, national recruiting analyst, essentially had a lot of glaring reviews that were shared from multiple recruits. We'll talk about the glaring review that was shared from Justin Logan in the third segment of the show. But Wiltfong essentially said it. He essentially said, the headline of the article is Cardinal Barbecue at Louisville, among the biggest recruiting weekends in school history. And I think that speaks for itself. I mean, you had almost 25 4-star recruits on campus. Now, I can't remember the last time that there were that many players of that rating or higher on campus. There were 2 5-star players worth noting. That was Jonte Gilbert and Caleb Cunningham, all in the 2025 class. There weren't really that many 2024 guys on campus, which I think some people will look at and sort of brush this segment off because they say, well, I mean, we're pretty far away from the 2025 class. We still have to fill the 2024 class. I mean, heck, the 2023 season hasn't even gotten underway yet. And I understand that. I understand it's not as exciting as 2024 players because you see 2025 guys obviously take their time, or it's not even really so much the 2025 class in specific as it is the junior class in general. A lot of them make their decisions, at the end of their junior year, heading into senior year. And these are players that haven't even started their junior year of high school. So I can understand a little bit of the hesitancy to be excited because there's probably not going to be many, if any, commitments that arise from this weekend. But what it does is it opens the door. It creates that conversation. And I think that it's never too early to get going in the 2025 class. It's true that a lot of the top programs, a lot of the blue blood programs, big name programs, they take their time. They don't really start prioritizing a recruiting class until essentially the semester before their senior seasons, or a couple months before their senior seasons, the end of spring, when players start to make unofficial visits, or the official visits in the summer. They take their time because they spend a lot of their times focused on signing day, focused now on transfers. And Jeff Brohm and company have essentially said, transfers are going to be the main focus in terms of recruiting moving forward, because you can get players that are immediately going to come into a program and produce, players that have produced already at the college level. There's more emphasis on the transfer portal than there ever has been. Now, will it start to correct itself? That is something that is yet to be seen, but at this point in time, that's not the case. But still, high school recruiting is still important. We can't overlook it. And despite what I was saying was, despite blue blood programs taking their time, you still have very highly rated guys commit to those programs, early on in their junior season, even their sophomore season as well. And that can't be, overlooked, because, you look at programs like Ohio State, like even Florida, like Alabama, LSU, your usual suspects, right? Your usual blue blood programs. They still get highly rated commits before the spring leading up to their respective senior seasons. So it's not like, it's too early. No, it's not. This is the right time to try to build that relationship up to where, if you're going to try to contend with some of these programs for some of these highly rated guys, you're going to have to offer something that those programs cannot. And, obviously the on-field success is something that you hope Louisville is able to at least sort of get in that same stratosphere. But as of right now, you don't have that, history program. You don't have that program history. You don't have that potential at the moment to compete for national championships. You have NIL opportunities, but you also have early playing time. And what we've seen from Jeff Brohm and company is the relationships that they're building as well early on in the process. And that's something that you hope to continue. Is you have to, being a program like Louisville, you have to create those relationships earlier to get players to start to prioritize your school. And that's no disrespect to Louisville, but Louisville's not on the same level of some of these programs. And that's pretty much to be understood if you suggest that Louisville's on the same playing field as Alabama, Ohio State, dream schools, players that, recruits that grow up hoping and dreaming that one day they're going to suit up in Tuscaloosa or Columbus or Baton Rouge or Clemson or, Ann Arbor, wherever it may be, Los Angeles, Austin. You get what I'm saying. You have to understand that, to contend with these schools, one of the approaches that you have to take is to create those opportunities earlier. And I think that being able to go out there and put your program on display, not only in front of a lot of 2025 prospects, but the sheer talent of the group. Like I mentioned, there are over 20 recruits rated at least 4 stars on at least one recruiting service. And you have multiple guys within the top 100 of the 2025 class spanning from over 13 states. That's something else. We talked about potentially, Louisville, there being a geographical focus under Jeff Brohm, the Kentuckiana area, still down south in Florida, maybe trying to get up into Big Ten country. But I think it's very certain that Brohm and company are casting a wide net. They're like, well, if you can play ball, I don't care where you're from, you can play for my program. And I like that Louisville has started to focus more nationally than the program has in probably over a decade. So very interested in that. But there's a ton of significance. I understand it's not 2024 guys, so some people may be hesitant to be excited. And I'm not saying that, you're wrong to feel that way. And I'm not saying that these guys are going to commit right away, but you're creating that, that vibe, that atmosphere that, hey, look, We went to Louisville. We had a good time. So it opens the door with a lot of highly rated guys that could end up going elsewhere. But even if you get 2 or 3 players from this list that we're going to talk about here in the next segment, if you can get 2 or 3 of those players to eventually come on official visits, to eventually commit to your program, I think this weekend is worth it, because to get to that next level, to recruit with that upper echelon of prospects, you have to contend with the big boys in recruiting, and to do that, you had to create the relationships earlier. So, like I mentioned, there are a lot of names to discuss from a lot of different states. We will attempt to do that here momentarily after we talk about our friends over at eBay Motors. Louisville's trying to eventually create a championship team. Well, for a championship team, it's all about making sure that every player is a perfect fit. That's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. Next time you need parts or accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to my garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit, or you get your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. With over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring in a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get those right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Okay, so heading into the second segment of the show, the Louisville Cardinals had a very successful 502 barbecue weekend this past weekend, welcoming over 20 players rated at least 4 stars from over 13 different states. 2 of those players being 5-star players. That is safety Jonte Gilbert from Georgia, who is ranked, according to 24/7 Sports, as the 49th best player, but ranked significantly higher, number 25 on 24/7 Sports Composite. And then you have wide receiver Caleb Cunningham from Mississippi, who is ranked inside of the top 20. I know that Louisville got a commitment from TJ Capers in the 2023 class. He ended up reclassifying and joining the team, which was extremely beneficial and encouraging news for Louisville. But the Cardinals aren't used to recruiting 5-star caliber players. Let me rephrase. They're used to offering. They're not used to getting significant interest. And that's to say, who's to say that these recruits will show significant interest? However, getting these players on campus during the summer for a weekend is pretty significant, because you're taking away the opportunity that they make a visit to another campus. Now, granted, you have the fall, you have 51 other weekends in the year, so I understand that. You can make the case that, well, they can still go visit where they want to visit, and that's true, but you're still getting them on campus, getting them in front of the coaching staff, the program, the facilities, the current players, whatever may have you, and that is significant in itself. You get 2 5-star players on campus. That is big time for Louisville. But not only that, it literally is a long list of players that were on campus that were rated at least a 4-star. Many of these guys inside of the top 100. Very quickly, I want to read to you the names of the states that were represented with those 4-star and 5-star combined caliber players. You have Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, California, Missouri, Connecticut, Louisiana, Indiana, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kansas, Virginia, Illinois, and Kentucky. See, there's not a ton of geographical correlation there outside of the eastern half of the United States, usually, or pretty much. But you still have California, you have Missouri, you have Kansas, you have states that are west of the Mississippi River, you have states that are west of Louisville and Mississippi, Louisiana, you have the South, you have the Southeast, you are even trying to tap up into the North. Connecticut, one of the top players from the state of Connecticut, Adam Shovlin, who is one of the best defensive linemen in the country. He's rated inside of the top 50 according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. He was on campus. You have other guys like Ivan Taylor, top 40 player from the Florida area. Some other Florida guys to focus on, Amari Wallace, ranked inside of the top 175. There has been some question as to whether or not the guys from Miami Central were able to make it onto campus. I haven't gotten confirmation on that just yet, but nonetheless, getting the majority of these guys on campus is very, very significant. Jet White is a player that a lot of people will talk about. He's been a player that has shown Louisville a ton of love on social media. Not only is he very highly rated, he's ranked as the 32nd best player according to 24/7 Sports. Granted, the composite ranking is very, very different. It's 187. He's still a very elite prospect at the cornerback position. 6'1" from Los Alamitos, California, which is around the area that Pierce Clarkson and company are from. So maybe Louisville tries to maybe not resurrect the Cali to the Ville widespread movement, but at least go into the area, use some of those connections with Steve Clarkson, Zach Soskin to try to get some of those recruits out of that area. White was a player that showed a lot of love to Louisville via social media. That's not the end-all, be-all, but still a good sign nonetheless. You have Dyer Hill from St. Louis, a place that Kevin Coleman is from. You know, he's ranked 60th in the country. You have a lot of highly rated wide receivers. We talked about Caleb Cunningham, Hill just now, Russell Babineau from Louisiana. You have Lamas and Waller from California, so on and so forth, that were able to make their way onto campus. I think that the skill positions are positions that Louisville's not going to have a ton of trouble recruiting, considering how well that they are going to fare in Jeff Brohm's offense. There's track record proven that you can succeed in Jeff Brohm's offense. You can get the catches, the targets, the receptions, the touchdowns because of the pass friendliness that the scheme provides. But I like the defensive approach to this as well, especially the attention to the linebacker position. We talked about Justin Logan, that we're going to talk about here momentarily in the third segment. But you have Tavion Wallace, top 50 from the Georgia area, Ezekiel Marcellin, Jaden Perlott, Ethan Pritchard, Eric Winters, Chris Ewald, Christian Pierce, multiple players at the linebacker position, because I think that that's definitely going to be a position of need moving forward. At this point, you're sort of in a situation where you feel good about the linebacker core in the current sense. You need to continue to add to that position. And I know that the 2025 class is still a far ways away, but you look at the veterans that the team could have in the 2024 season, there's no doubt that you need to reload at that position. A couple of defensive linemen, a handful of defensive backs as well. That's another position that you look at. MJ Griffin, Josh Meekins Jr., Cam Kelly, Devin Neal, D'Angelo Hutchinson. Not many of those guys are going to play more than one season because they're going to be going to the NFL. So what does Jeff Brohm Company do? He starts to recruit the safety position very hardly now. Jonte Gilbert, 5-star level guy on campus. Ivan Taylor, top 40 on campus. Trey Fuller from Louisiana on campus. He's rated inside the top 25. Jaden Blair from North Carolina on campus. So you have multiple players in the secondary, especially at the safety position, that you look at. I think that there's not necessarily a one position in particular that you look at and say, yeah, that's what we wanted to go after. I think it was a matter of just, hey, let's get as many highly rated guys on campus, get them around each other, get them on, on our field with our program. I don't want to shed too much light from Steve Wiltfong's article from 24/7 Sports because it is behind a paywall. It is subscription based, so I'm not going to do that to Jody Demling, Michael McCammon, or Steve Wiltfong. I will just say that there were some glaring reviews from Justin Logan, from Ivan Taylor, from Jet White, from multiple highly rated guys that you're going to want to go read. So be sure to tune in. They have a great deal going on at 24/7 Sports that gives you a lot of great recruiting information. But nonetheless, it just goes to show you that it was a pretty successful weekend. Like I said, I think you have to have patience. This isn't a weekend like that weekend back in late January, early February of 2022 to where you see 7 players commit in a 48-hour span. I would probably be surprised if one 2025 guy commits because it's still extremely early. And I would look for the end of this semester to start to be time frame to where you may see a commit or two as we head into a critical springtime. So we'll see. We're still in a situation to where there's going to be a lot of emphasis on the 2024 class, rounding that out, the transfer portal as well. But again, all eyes are going to be on the Louisville Cardinals to conduct business this year and win a good amount of games to get those players to come back onto campus, get them to seriously consider, so on and so forth. But we talked a lot about the 2025 class. I want to talk about a 2024 name to focus on. Actually the highest 2024 rated recruit on campus this past weekend was Justin Logan, a linebacker from Marietta, Georgia, plays for Kell High School. We'll talk about his interesting high school career and how Louisville is trying to make up ground in that recruitment. Before we do that, I want to thank you all again, for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day. Just a reminder that the show is free on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. All right, heading into the final segment of July 31st. I can't believe we're already at August. Well, tomorrow is if you're listening to this on July 31st, we are just a month away from the opening kickoff against Georgia Tech. Speaking of Georgia, a player from the Atlanta area, from Marietta, Justin Logan, was on campus. 2024 linebacker, ranked just inside of the top 450 according to the 24/7 Sports Composite, the 448th best player in the country, 40th best linebacker, 51st best prospect in the state of Georgia. That just goes to show you how stupid talented this area is, the state of Georgia. A top 450 player isn't even in the top 50 in his state. That just goes to show you how stupid talented the area is. But nonetheless, Justin Logan has over 30 offers to his name, some very highly rated places, I might add. You look at places like Maryland, like NC State, like Pittsburgh, that are showing some interest, Kentucky, Indiana, Duke, a lot of Power 5 interest going Justin Logan's way. He just visited NC State on an official visit back in late June. He has been picking up offers throughout the spring, and I think that he's going to be a player that is going to add even more big-time offers, even into that upper echelon of blue blood programs, because one thing that is very interesting about the high school career of Justin Logan, 6'2", 205-pound star of Kell High School, is that this past season was his first year at linebacker. He was a wide receiver before that, and as a junior this past season, recorded over 60 tackles, had an interception, had a pass breakup. In Georgia's 5A classification, which is pretty solid, Kell went 10-2. This is information credited to Andrew Ivins, the Southeast recruiting director of 24/7 Sports. But Justin Logan, 6'2", 205 pounds, covers extremely well for his size, a player that has good hands, having played wide receiver, solid agility, ability to go north-south, but also east-west. I think that he's a player that's going to excel in coverage, which is extremely solid when you consider the 4-2-5 base defensive package that Louisville runs. His versatility would be very welcomed in that defensive backfield, but he's a guy that I think that could end up as an inside linebacker going east to west. I think he's going to drop back in coverage as well. Could be a guy that is used in the star role that Ben Perry, Gilbert Frierson are going to accompany, or I should say company. So this is a recruitment that I think is essentially going to continue to take off. I think as it heads into the senior season, as it heads into the late fall, we're going to see Logan potentially rise, I think, up to 100, maybe 150 spots, because 60 tackles as a junior, first year as a linebacker, he's still growing into that position. I can see a lot of programs looking at this recruit and saying, he looked pretty solid early on, and as he grows into the position, he's going to get better and better. He's got the raw talent. He's got the athleticism. He has the size. He's got the speed both vertically and laterally as well, but also solid hands, solid coverage ability to keep up with opposing receivers running routes. This is going to be a recruitment that I'd like Louisville trying to get in the mix on early to, like I said, build that relationship up, because you want to have that withstanding relationship before these big time programs come in, because that's going to be one of your only hopes to hold on to this recruitment. So I would like to see Louisville get Logan onto campus for an official visit coming up this fall. I would like to see him in attendance in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in that first weekend of September for the Chick-fil-A kickoff game I don't even think it's the Chick-fil-A kickoff game, but the opening game of the Louisville season against Georgia Tech down in Atlanta, which is, some odd miles south of the Marietta area where Kennesaw State University is. But I think that this is a recruitment that I definitely would prioritize if I was the Louisville Cardinals. But that's going to wrap up July. I appreciate everyone for tuning in this month. Hopefully you like the player ranking series. We're going to have some solid series coming up where we're going to talk about the schedule in depth. 3-part series. We talk about 4 teams each episode, breaking down predictions, previews, so on and so forth. So be sure to tune in. That's going to wrap up today's episode of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here very soon.